Much as I thought I could plan a podcast, that is not going to happen. I do not have the mindset to sit here. Chop up block for block how I'm going to tell you about weight loss and weight gain. Good evening on this Thursday, January 20th, 2022. The time is 10:57 p.m. and welcome to Early in the AM with Isha. Today I'm going to try to work through some notes I took from a video I saw on Dr. Cornel West on YouTube entitled What It Means to Be Human. The video was posted on May 7th, 2020. And it's under the It's under the YouTuber Ed Mays, spelled EDMAYS. And the first part of my notes I took was learning how to love, achieving life and hope. Take a pause here because I don't know if I love myself. Well, I know I love to hurt, and I know I love my pain, and I know I'm in love with my disgust for myself. But that is not a measure of care that is respected in the professional world. So my laugh is twisted in a way that I know that I am laughing at myself as I laugh with myself. And as others laugh at me, I laugh with them laughing at me as I laugh at them at the same time. So if twisted love counts in learning how to love, then I do love myself. I'm very hopeful. Hopeful it's a belch on a gassy stomach. And I belch up hope on a daily basis. It's consistent. And half the time I do it so much, I forget it's there. But I'm always in hope. And sometimes I misconstrue hope for imagination. I imagine things being there. If I can't physically grab it, I imagine I have it. I imagine I'm in someone else's shoes, living in their money, in their life. I imagine myself through works like this on a podcast, becoming that person someday that can live or be real in these fantasies. And that is portrayed through these hope imaginative lapses I have throughout my day. So in learning to love myself, I have to do this. It's a coping mechanism. It's just another batch of Band-Aids for my open wounds, so to speak. And again, the title of this video is What It Means to Be Human. The second part of my notes I took was wrestling with forms of death. Now, Dr. West says the best way to find out how human you are is if you've learned how to die. And I know exactly what this means. This is the opening and festering of who you are to the masses, who you are to your power, who you really are underneath your pursuits of professionalism and surfacing and the candy or the paint. You know what I mean? What is your clay underneath it all? How is it shaped? And most importantly, which most works are before the completed one is preserved, when you are thrown away or turned into worms, what kind of death are you? So there's a consistent need to die every single day. You have a lot of cells in your body that die every single day, and with those cells you die as well. But what a lot of people misunderstand, I guess what they forget, is those part of your cells, that is also part of your now that dies too. It's not just, the cells that you wash off are just discarded because they were mindless parts of you. Every part of you, especially if you're 100, if 20% of you dies every day, you have to experience that in your now at some point. You are kidding yourself if you feel that you're shedding off parts of yourself and you don't experience or feel that death. Your character is never going to be shaped. You're going to be in an endless character world of positivity in which the people you need to reach are so out of your reach that there are a fear and a dissonance between the two of you that is not correct. I felt that one. Wrestling with forms of death. Early physical, social, and psychic. Wrestling against the niggerization I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. Mary Ellen Pleasant. It is. I mean, with me, I present myself openly in contrast, but at the same time, I'm at the back of someone's mind. And if the person I've wronged becomes the world that I'm trying to get into, at some point I have to realize that I am the back of that person's mind. And as much as I pitch my ideas to the front, as much as I pitch my ideas forward, I may have to come to the realization that I am just a picture in the back of someone's mind who may not have favorable feelings for me. And a lot of my work will be destroyed and misunderstood in the process. And that's what Dr. Cornell West was talking about when he says you are here to learn how. You have to learn how to do it professionally. Now, he teaches classes on people how to become this dynamic in their professionalism. So you embrace every layer of life as you grow forward. There is a serious, overwhelming plague of careerism in the world in which people result to cowardice. They result to means of cowardice on top of great physical strength. And they practice this over and over again. What they don't learn to do is experience what Dr. Well calls education coming with the death of dogma or doctrine. Endless perennial, becoming an echo in the lapse until you grow to fail better. The better that one can do. Dogma, death, and domination. I guess that came for me after high school. I reached a very pinnacle point at high school. All of my physical, well, I wouldn't say all, a great amount of my physical strength and mental concentration and an intellectual concentration came to a point. And then at that point, I began to fall. This is where the promiscuity came, the very dangerous and psychedelically nasty sides of my sexual promiscuity. And then when I actually got to school, the abandonment altogether of the classroom and education, how I alienated myself from my classroom and pursued the street element right in the very lineage of the class, right in the sinew, in the dollar bill. You ever look at a dollar bill in the light and you see that clear strip that goes down the side? If that strip isn't in there, that dollar is counterfeit. So it's almost like I was in the classroom according to the student list of who was supposed to be in that class. And I was there in my consciousness. I knew I was supposed to be there. But my physical presence was counterfeit. I just was not there. And especially when I transferred from one school to the next, it was a total abandonment of the physical classroom. Every day I sat in a time against that class and experienced the dogma of a different, serious kind. And every time I was expelled, and then I dropped down 25,000 into debt, this is me crashing into a death that I didn't know existed. I was dying and I didn't know it. And I kept dying, and I got to a point where I was on the physical ground in blackouts. I was on the physical ground in dehydration, in deep illness and despair, working, scratching for pennies a day to supply a failing intellectual cornea in a sexual revolution that ended up going nowhere. It didn't add to me at all. So in this hole, I experienced a death from a very high point to a very low point. This happened to me between the ages of, it capped out at around 22. So I went through this between 18 and by the time I hit 22, I was in the mecca of my despair, which was my, I guess what you call my outing, in which the catastrophe hit. Is what I would say is a catastrophe hit in the form of, not parrhesia. I don't want to say parrhesia. That's what Dr. Cornell would say. My receptivity was in what do you call pariah? Is it pariah? Pareia? Let's see if I can find this word. He says it about a couple of times. Paidea. 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 I hit a catastrophe. I was visited in catastrophe. I was already in a hole, in an educational hole. I was in a physical hole. I was in a financial hole from my physical alienation of my members that I earned to be in school, and from the money that the school gave me to be there that I literally wasted. So I was in the financial hole, the educational hole, the physical and personal hole. I was in an emotional hole. Of course, I was in a, when it comes to self-respect and everything else, that wasn't even there. It was just an echo. And what hit the nail on the head was a mixing of two catastrophes together. In my own circle, I was already on detonation. I was already eroding and imploding and dying. And on top of everything that happened in early 2000 to the country, that catastrophe was on top of mine. And I couldn't surface it because everywhere I went to draw my pain, there was just a heavier pain there that I could not penetrate. And there was a heavier fear there that I couldn't penetrate. So I ended up imploding, and my spirit ingrew. I don't know how to explain that. It's like an ingrown nail. Like something that's it's right at the surface, but it's not surface enough. It's not powered enough. Physically, I wasn't powering it enough to push it out. I guess that's what I want to say. And what I became is what Dr. Wells said is the worst that you can be is when you become well adjusted to injustice. I became well adjusted to being disrespected, well adjusted to being ignored, well adjusted to taking second place even though I earned first place, well adjusted to being lied to, stolen from, stole on, what do you call that, plagiarized, forgotten, abused, denied health, denied access, denied entry, made fun of, laughed at, maimed, plagued, destroyed, just anything you can think of that a whim can do to a person on a magnitude scale. In being human, I recognize the afterbirth, or not the afterbirth, the after effects of all the fecal matters of my life. I met my fecal on every stage. I met my fecal near my mouth, near my eyes, near my hands, near my ears and my tongue and my nose. I met it in my crushes on the opposite sex. In my trying to present myself as professional, there was fecal on my clothes. It was fecal on my speech. It was fecal on my fruits when I went shopping in the stores. It was in the milk. It was in the cheese. It was in the water. It was in the ice cream. No matter where I looked, there was shit there. On the bottom of every thought that cycles around society, if my name was anywhere near it, there was shit in it. What it means to be human is, can you even tolerate the sight of your own shit? Is it even possible? I learned in a book called, I guess, Medical Apartheid, about what happened to black slave women during the slave times and the horrendous conditions they were in. And a lot of these women, being pregnant and, being mistreated and raped and having all kinds of babies without proper help, a lot of their wombs collapsed. And what happens is the bowel leaks shit into the vagina, and then the vagina gets this smell that is very ungodly. And these women were labeled to, they're, if it's black, their vagina smell. And it, carried over centuries. It's not like they just got introduced today. That's what it kind of feels like. Like somebody's just looking at you ready to spray you with Lysol because they just see the shit coming. And that kind of reputation is unbelievably dissatisfying. But in trying to be professional with your pain, because it's not even personal. Personal ends, at least in personal, something, if you're lucky, it